The kind of negotiations we had with this, my colleague here, Sean from Unite, we started discussing this roughly about August, September last year. Because my season ticket buddy, Paul McSweeney there, I'm pointing him out, we went to the pre-season friendly against Rugby Town before, it's about 2 weeks out before the start of the season. And we turned up and we thought, right, okay, what's our squad then? What are we going to be for the start of the season? And we looked at it and we thought, this is the youth team, isn't it? This is basically the team that we were watching down Alan Hicks, apart from Marcus Tudguy and a few of the senior players. And obviously everyone's got their own opinion of Marcus Tudguy, because made themselves heard quite a lot last season. So I went back and I thought, we clearly knew we were one of the people that were hoodwinked into renewing our season tickets about all the money that's going to be invested into the club, and clearly we could see from 2 weeks out of the start of the season that hadn't happened. So we kind of knew at that stage that we're in trouble here, aren't we? And clearly what happened the first 2 months of the season, we couldn't buy a win, could we? And subsequently, obviously, Tony Mowbray left and the rest is history. So what happened with regard to, I had several meetings with regard to Sean. I said, how can we try to get involved in this, use our organising skills from Unite? I mean, Unite is the biggest trade union in the UK and Ireland. And we thought, we know obviously about the work that the Sky Blue Trust done. I mean, I've been on both of the marches from Gosford Green to the town centre. I've been involved in the March for Charlton this year, etc. And clearly we thought, well, what can we do to try to bring people together and essentially say to Coventry people, are we going to stand for this? Because most of us were brought up when we were a mid-table team in the then First Division, when we had, we had decent home form, didn't we? We used to expect going to games and beating the cream of English football, certainly at Highfield Road. We expected that, and obviously what's happened subsequently, and I know it's not just the last 10 years, but we're focusing on obviously the CISO issue, because that's where it certainly has gone down. So, essentially what we're looking to do with tonight is to try to, put it to you guys and say, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the people of Coventry and then the Coventry City supporters particularly. What are we going to do about this? It's up to us ultimately, isn't it? It is up to us at the end of the day. Because not only are you doing it for the love of your club that you're going to see, but you're passing it on to the next generation. You're passing it on to your sons, your grandchildren. And ultimately, I think if we can come together, because let's face it, we've got a great city here. We have got a great city. If you look at, Jaguar cars, I mean, it's a world name brand. It's from Coventry. The specials, still specials. They've been split up 35 years or more. People still talk about specials. We've got a lot of things to be proud of in Coventry. And our football club, the reality is when we were at the Charity Shield in '87, we took about 54,000 there. And that was the biggest allocation that anyone ever took to the old Wembley. And again, with regard to Wembley this year, we took 45,000. So, we can do things if we stick together. And I think, that's what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to do today. I'm going to pass you on to my colleague, Sean, because Sean's just going to briefly tell you about things of what Unite Community do. Because we've invested a lot of time into this. I went to see Duncan's film down in London earlier this year, because we were discussing with Sky Blue Trust from about the start of this year. I've been dealing with David and Frank from Sky Blue Trust, and it was always our aim to put this event on, because we put an event on similar to this in February, where we had Ken Loach. If anyone who knows Ken Loach, is the filmmaker from Nuneaton, who's a well-renowned filmmaker, who won the BAFTA for his film I, Daniel Blake. Well, we showed that film, and we had a Q&A with Ken Loach here in February, and we wanted to do the same thing, but on a Sky Blue theme.
Thank you to Unite Community Coventry and Warwickshire, the Sky Blues Trust and Jimmy Hill Way for the invitation to show this film for the first time in Coventry. It showed for the first time ever in London earlier this year. I would like to just briefly thank the film is funded by the Arts Council England. It couldn't have happened without that. I would also like to thank all the many people who took part in the making of the film, some of whom are here today, and that involves the people who placed their trust in me for me to be filming alongside them without querying too much what I was going to do with the material that's representing them. It involves a fan who's here tonight who did the voiceover work with me, which I think was the first voiceover work she'd done on a film project. Other people who interviewed for me, interviews which we don't hear in the film, but necessarily were fundamental to the making of the film, because this film attempts to, it comes from me, it's obviously subjective, I don't try to hide that, but it's also attempting to somehow encapsulate a kind of communal feeling of what was going on, the emotional arc of what happened in that year of exile when we played a whole season in Sixfields, not forgetting that for most of that time we had no idea when we would be coming back to Coventry, or if indeed we would be coming back to Coventry at all. So all of those people also who were interviewing for me are part of helping me shape and direct the film, and feeling like that's not just me saying that, that's a group of us all saying. There are differences of opinion, but trying to find a space with this film where all of those viewpoints can kind of coexist. It is a documentary, but it's a kind of strange kind of a documentary. It doesn't try to tell you any of the stuff that you probably already know about the politics behind the disputes which took us to Sixfields. It tries to talk about something else which I feel has been missing a lot, or tends to be missing a lot in the discourse often in the media, where, or amongst fans, where we're talking about who's right. You know, were Sisu right to do this? Did they have no choice because the council put them in this position? There are so many different positions. There were so many different positions from the people who stood on the hill outside Sixfields for the whole of that season, the people who didn't travel there at all, the people who said not a penny more, the people who were going to away games, the people who did go to Sixfields and who believed that it was important to go to Sixfields because what we're supporting is not the club, but we're supporting the team of very young players who were on the field that year under Stephen Presley. So what you're not going to see is some kind of unpacking of the politics. What it is a collage of images, sounds, voices, which are all designed to convey some kind of sense of emotion, and hopefully I've done that in a way that leaves you kind of space to find something in the film yourself. It's not so much about me trying to tell you something, but share something together through the medium of film. The film itself is just under 18 minutes long. It's taken me, I started filming in 2013. It's taken till earlier this year to complete the film, and part of that reason is that it's very difficult to condense an argument of everything that was going on during that year of exile. Condensing that into sort of 18 minutes has been almost a year of editing it. So we've got an 18-minute film, and we're going to precede that by, well, it's not really a film, but it's a short piece that I've edited for tonight, which documents the joint protests of Charlton and City fans outside the Rico just a few months back, which is kind of one of several examples where City supporters have worked with other clubs as against the grain, as that often seems to be that there have been multiple instances of different groups of fans working together for a common aim. So that's a little bit of more current material that we're going to see first.
So first of all, we've got the chair for this evening, which is David Johnson from Jimmy Hill Way. So can we give him a clap, please? Okay, we've got from Skybridge Trust, we've got Rachel Brown. Can you give Rachel a clap, please? Okay, also from the Skybridge Trust, we've got Moz Baker. Can you give Moz a clap, please? Okay, from the Coventry Telegraph, and obviously he's done a lot of reporting on this subject matter, and he's also obviously produced a book, which some of you have probably read. Is everyone okay on that? Okay.
Yeah. Didn't tell us about that on the health.
Have you checked that one?
Work here anymore.
So if we can raise our hands for Simon Gilbert, please. Okay, we're nearly there. We have a member of used to play for Coventry City Football Club. Okay. So he's a Coventry lad, and then he obviously played for Nuneaton Borough for a while, and he went to Luton Town, and David Pleat moved from Nuneaton to Luton Town. But he came here in 1984. Was it everybody called? Or did Tom called? Yeah. So we've got Kirk Stevens. Yeah, can you just, if you've got questions, can you hold up your papers so Sean can come and grab them, please? And last but not least, okay, the filmmaker himself. Okay, we've already seen his film. We've given him a clap, but let's give him another clap. All the way from Bristol today. I think he might travel up today. Okay, and it's Duncan Wedley. Okay. So yeah, if you've got any questions, if you put your papers up in the air so Sean can come and collect them. But before we start, I'm just going to do a quick biography of everyone that's on the panel. So we'll start off with the chair David Johnson, and they've all written these for me, so I haven't written these, so I'm repeating their words, okay? Make sure I don't get in trouble with it. Okay, so David. Came to Coventry as a Lanchester Poly student in 1973. He became hooked on watching the Sky Blues in the Gordon Milne era, particularly in the era where Fergie and Wallace were banging in the dogs for fun. He has continued to be resident in the Coventry and Warwickshire area for most of the subsequent time, although working away for extended periods in relation to his job. Essentially been attending City games since then, really, isn't it? On and off.
40 years.
For 40 years, okay. So, having scaled down his work commitments in 2010, he's been active and vocal in opposition to Joyce Apala and Tim Fisher, and he is currently the spokesperson for Jimmy Hill Way. So can we give David another clap, please? Kirk, a lot of us here have probably seen him play for Coventry when Bobby Gore was the manager the first time around in 1980. Well, he got sacked in late in 84, didn't he? I was at the game before he got sacked. But yeah, so Kirk he's played for his local club, Coventry City. After years on the books, you were actually let go, weren't you, before?
I was here from 8 years old, actually.
So from eight years of age, so he was...
Long association.
Yeah, a very long association. So then Kirk then moved to Nuneaton Borough, and he was under David Pleat when he was at Nuneaton Borough, wasn't he? And then David Pleat got the Luton Town job, and Kirk went along. I think he was the first signing, wasn't he, from David Pleat?
Certainly was, yeah.
And I have it by authority, the first game that you played for Luton Town, they won 6-1.
We were losing 1-0 at half time to Oldham, turn it round.
You turn it round. That's not bad, is it? Been on your debut. And then he came to Coventry, played at Coventry City in 1984. So you played 34 times for the club over 2 seasons.
That's right, that's not the crucial ligament.
Crucial ligament, which in those days was
career,
yeah, it was a career finisher. So you subsequently went on to play a bit for Nuneaton Borough and for Barnes as well, didn't you?
For Barnet, yeah, just a couple of years, yeah.
That's right. So Kirk is currently chairman of Walsgrave Contractors, and he's also president of the Coventry City Football Players Association. And we have Billy here. We all know Billy Bell if you can attend the games. Billy here as well. So give Billy a clap. As well, please. Okay, next along the line we've got Rachel. Rachel is a member of the Sky Blue Trust. So she's the founder member of the Trust and the longest serving committee member, having held various positions during the years. She's also a founder member of the Supporters Consultative Group, and for anyone who might recognise her, she also works at the university as well. So can we give Rachel another round, please? Okay, the next person is Mars. I think a lot of you here will know Mars if you've been on the marches, and you've heard Mars as a pivotal point of those marches, and he's absolutely great. I think you may organise those marches. So Mars was elected to the board of Sky Blue Trust in 2012, and in that time has filled the position of Secretary, Press and Publicity Spokesperson and Vice Chair. Since October 2016, he's been the chair of the Trust. Mars is also proud to have hosted both the Trust marches, so they're the marches that began across the board and then to Broad Gate. He's proud of doing that. The City Centre Rise, which is 2013 and 2014. He's been a supporter since the late 1970s. Mars has been a season ticket holder for most of those years. He's also reported extensively on the club for the blind and partially sighted, and was also sports editor for a then incremental radio station, Harmony FM, in the early 90s. Mars currently works for a 60,000 strong member association providing sports and leisure opportunities. He is also an experienced event host, MC and actor. He longs for the day when Coventry City start moving in an upward trajectory with owners who share the fans' ambition. So can we give Mars a round of applause? Next on our list is, on our panel, is Simon Gilbert. Simon is the chief reporter at the Coventry Telegraph. During this time at the newspaper, Simon has led the coverage on the off-field issues at Coventry City, including the long-running Rico Arena dispute and the club's controversial move to Six Fields. His unique insight and expertise led him to be commissioned to write a book, Coventry City, A Club Without a Home, which documents the most turbulent period in the history of Coventry City Football Club. He also spearheaded the Telegraph's Bring City Home campaign, which helped raise awareness of the issues at the club and push for CCFC's return to Coventry. Can we give Simon a last on the panel is Duncan, whose film you've just seen. Duncan is an artist and is also a sound recordist and filmmaker. Duncan is originally from Leamington Spa, but is now based in Bristol. Duncan has shown his work in galleries and museums nationally and across Europe, and recently as far as Argentina. He has recently shown at the Whitechapel Gallery in London. I was at the event which showed that, which that was actually the national premiere of that film, Wijgerden, in Whitechapel Gallery in East London. Also in one of the museums in Porto, and for the Centre for Experimental Art also in Buenos Aires. He's a City fan, but admits he doesn't go to as many games as he likes because of work commitments and obviously geographical location. So once again, if you can give the panel a round of applause. I'll hand it over to you. Okay.
Thanks, Carl. And I would like to say, while we're doing rounds of applause, the amount of work this guy has put into organising tonight. Okay, just quickly, what we're going to do now, before I take questions from the audience, and so that there can't be any accusation of bias, I'm going to ask Carl and Sean to select the questions that I put to the panel. But first of all, I'm going to ask one question to each member of the panel about issues raised on the film tonight, the film itself and topics that it relates to. So I'm going to start off with Duncan. Duncan, your film focuses on the events and emotions which occurred 3 or 4 years ago, a very dark time for Sky Blue supporters. Do you sense a renewed relevance of those actions and feelings in what could be argued as similarly troubled times for Coventry City?
Yes. It's an interesting thing as a filmmaker, a documentary maker, that part of your making is in the present, you're kind of making decisions and following something that's live, and you don't know where it's going to go. At the time I started filming here, as I said before, we had no idea when the club was coming back to this city, or if the club was going to come back to the city. And that was one of the things that I'm trying to do in the film, is kind of at least to attempt to kind of capture that state of unease. And I think, you know, so you have this moment of being in things and reacting to things, but always as a documentary maker, when the film is complete, it becomes by nature historical, which somehow seems like a bit of a paradox of what you're attempting to do. So, you know, on the one hand, I think what we've kind of left there is a document that reminds us of something, and a document that doesn't go away in the same way as Simon's book, Club Without a Home, is doing the same thing in a different kind of way, where Simon focuses on the actualities, the facts of the dispute, of what was going on behind the scenes, and I'm doing something similar, which focuses on trying to place in the memory what those events caused in us and how we felt about those events. So yeah, there's this one aspect where the film is now historical, but in that narrative arc, which kind of starts with a group of supporters on a hill outside Sixfields and ends with that, I don't know, for me I get this real kind of, I feel good seeing the faces of the supporters returning to the Ricoh Arena for the first time in a year at that game against Gillingham in 2014. That every time I see those faces, and I see how many, and there's so much more, there's so much footage that you're not seeing in that film, of just this pure, unadulterated joy, and you really see what it means to people. And that's the conclusion of the film, but at the same time, there are these fleeting images where you see the banner of wasps outside the Ricoh that are somehow saying, in that conclusion of the film, it's a happy ending, sort of. There's an ominous sign of the future, of things to come. And I think one thing that the film reminds me of is that at the point in time that we were in it, the focus was on being back in Coventry. There was a lot of anti-Sisu sentiment, but whatever people felt, whether they were people who went to Sixfields or didn't go to Sixfields, however they felt, everyone was unified by the desire to see their team back in Coventry, that was the feeling, that was right, that was where we should be. The team should be in Coventry. And I think what this film reminds me, and should remind us, is that we achieved that. Everyone fighting together in their own ways, everyone pushing in the way that they could. We achieved getting the club back to the Ricoh. And I think, if I remember, that Stephen Presley said in an interview shortly when it had been announced that we were returning, and before the Gillingham game, I believe he said that he understood that the pressure from the fans was a significant aspect of getting the club back to the city. And to me also, what that tells me, because obviously we're in new territory now, the whole thing's evolved, but that kind of tells me if we could achieve that, then whatever is in the future is possible for us to achieve something which is closer to what we want as a group for our football club. And I think, you know, just lastly, I think there's that all starts to resonate also with the pain of that year in exile. How, for me, it starts to ask the question, beyond the immediacy of what is going to happen with the club, are CC going to sell? There's a long-term question of whatever happens next. If somebody were to buy, if somebody's going to come in, how do we ensure that that does not happen to us again? How do we ensure more broadly that the major decisions that the football club makes off the field are at least broadly in keeping with the community's wishes for the club?
Yeah, thanks for that, Duncan. And that last bit of your answer is something that we'll return to later in the evening. But I want to go to Kurt Stevens with my next question. Kurt, can you recall your thoughts as a former player with strong connections to Coventry City? When the situation featured in Duncan's film Erupted, how did you feel? And what must it have been like for Stephen Presley and his players in such bizarre circumstances, playing in front of minimal crowds 35 miles from their home ground?
Well, first and foremost, thanks very much for inviting me on this evening to take part in this. I really appreciate it. As for moving to Sixfields, it was a personal decision, not one that the committee that I belong to made. I made a decision not to support the football club at Sixfields. I'm Coventry through and through from the age of 8 until 60 odd years old. You know, I've got sky blue blood through and through me. I love the club that much. I did not want to see my hometown club playing in another town. It wasn't for me, so I made the decision not to go there. Although having said that, I do feel for the team and the manager, because they're contractors of the club, they're professionals, they've got to go and do their job. Stephen Presley had a hell of a job motivating his players before the games, because as a player, I know when you come out in an away game, you come out the tunnel, there is nothing better than seeing a masses of sky blue supporters there knowing they're behind you. When you come out at Sixfields and they can see the people on the banks and, you know, a few scattered supporters, it must have been not demoralising, but very, very difficult for these young lads, because most of them were young lads, to try and pick themselves up and you know, play their part. It was for me one of the most dreadful decisions we ever made, to take the club out of the town, and I don't think it done any of the players at their careers any good, and for Stephen Presley especially, he'd done a great job under terrifically poor, bad conditions. So, as I said, as a former player, it for me is one of the worst things that have happened to the football club. See my hometown club playing Northampton. All due respect to Northampton, lovely people, lovely place, but that's not our home. Here's our home, and this is where I want us to play our football.
In fact, it reminded me earlier on of the game that was arranged by the former players at the Rico shortly after we went to Sixfields.
Yeah, I mean, Billy and I work, and Joe gets involved with us enormously when we're raising funds to bring former players back to the club. And weeks, months probably before fixture lists were out, before anything about Sixfields came about, we decided to have a charity game, and we arranged it with through the Rico for a Sunday, because if Coventry were at home on the Saturday, obviously we could play the day after. If they were away, well, Sunday was always a better day for us. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the 9,000 people that came to the Rico to watch us play the game, you know, it proved a great success. And we didn't want to turn to CISO and say, you know, there's the evidence, there's the proof. You know, you had, 1,200 down at Northampton, we had 9,000 at the Rico. We didn't have to tell them anything. I think the supporters spoke by putting the bums on seats at the Rico, and, nothing more was said about it. We raised an awful lot of money, Billy. I believe £25,000 that day. Yeah, £25,000. So we did prove a little point, but more than that, we made probably about 10 or 12 charities a lot better off, and they were all Coventry charities, and we were proud to be a part of that day, and obviously part of the former Players Association.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic effort by the former players. I'm going to turn to Moz now. Moz, we heard part of your eloquent speech describing the speculators and chancers that are ruining football. Yet when Sisu arrived in 2007, most fans viewed them as saviours. Should supporters be careful what they wish for? Are we partly to blame for letting rogue owners take control of so many clubs?
Thanks, David. I remember vividly where I was in 2007, December, when the news came through. I was in Australia on an extended holiday, and I was desperate to find out, what the situation was. And when I found out that Sisu had taken over the club, I felt a great sense of relief. No great joy, but a sense of relief that the club, had actually managed to find new owners. And looking at the model with Ray Ransom coming in, a football man, it looked a decent model. And for that early period, it seemed to be working, but we all know what happened subsequently. I don't think anybody then would have imagined what has happened in the 10 years that have passed. Could ever have possibly imagined the turbulence that we've been through. So yeah, I think we've learned an awful lot, not just as Coventry City fans, but football in general. We've seen other clubs as well that have, had similar plight to ourselves. Any football club has had it as bad as Coventry personally. But there are other clubs as well that have suffered through owners that shouldn't be allowed to run football clubs. And this is where, as we've said repeatedly within the Trust, this is where the Football League should be held accountable. And I hope the Football League has learned its lesson, not just for Coventry City in the future, but for other football clubs. As I said in the speech that you heard excerpts from there, football belongs in the community, and clubs should be run by people who have an understanding of that football club, of that community, of the history and the tradition of what that football club is all about. And hopefully, people will come in eventually to buy this football club who have those things in mind, who care about the football club, and who can take it to its place.
Yeah, and I think that is what we all have to aim for, it's what we all have to push for and hope for. Simon, as Duncan mentioned, there are alternative perspectives to those portrayed in the film. Upwards of 1,500 regularly attended games at Six Fields. It was a deeply divisive time, and to an extent we remain a divided fan base. Can you understand why some supporters continue at least to tolerate Sisu, or even actively support Joyce Parler and Tim Fisher, despite all the damage that's been done to our club?
Thanks, David. It's an interesting choice of words, that tolerance. That implies that there's some level of choice there, and I'm not sure there is in the case of Sisu as owners of Coventry City. You'll be aware, and I'm sure many of the people in this room are aware, that the Coventry Telegraph have taken the stance that it's time for Sisu to put the club up for sale. They've had almost a decade now to turn this club around, yet almost by every conceivable measure, the club's moved backwards and down. And that's not good enough for a club of Coventry City size. We think they've had every attempt, every opportunity to turn it around, and they've failed every time that they've tried something new. So that's our stance on the matter. In terms of why some people do still seem to be supporters of Joy and Tim, it's a difficult question, and I don't think anybody likes to see Coventry City fans divided on anything. I think the thing that makes us Coventry City fans is the fact that we're all united over one thing, and that's the love for Coventry City. So for us to be divided on any aspect of anything is upsetting, and it causes real problems in families, friendships, even marriages. From one of the things I covered in my book was the fact that during the time at Six Fields there was a married couple where one of them was going to the matches and one of them wasn't. Jordan Clark, who used to play for Coventry City, his parents, one was going and one wasn't. So that's the level of division it can cause. I think perhaps the reason some people seem to be supportive of Joyce Parler, Sisu, Tim Fisher is because they find it very difficult to separate the owners and the club. But you, I, and I'm sure most of the people in this room realise that the owners and the club aren't the same thing. The owners and the club are completely different things. The club will be here long after the owners have gone. It was here long before the owners arrived. The club belongs to the fans, despite whose name is on the ownership documents. It will always belong to the fans. And that's an important thing to remember. But just to add a bit of balance to it, I do think it is important to cut Sisu and Joyce Zapata a little bit of slack, because I do think they arrived with the best of intentions. I don't think that they arrived and thought, how can we make a royal cock-up of this? I don't think any new owners coming into a football club would do that. And without doubt, the organisation and Joy have invested time and money in Coventry City, and it hasn't worked out. Now, the whys and wherefores of that, we could spend hours picking over, but ultimately, as I said at the very start, they've had 9 years, nearly 10 years to turn it around, and the blame has to lie at the door of the people who are in control of this football club. So I do have some sympathy for them. I think they came with the best of intentions, it didn't work out, and now really is the time for them to say enough is enough, walk away and let somebody else come in who's got the interests of the club and its supporters at heart come in and take over.
Thanks, Simon. Last but not least on the panel, Rachel. The film portrays a year of crisis at Coventry City, ending in a victory of sorts. But the crisis began long before Sisu, and it's still going on today. In fact, it's multiple crises, you could say, today. Should we not accept the crisis as the natural condition of our club and just get behind the team while we still have one to support?
I would love to go and watch my club and not worry about all the politics going on. I think that's why Wembley was such a joyous day, because for one day we could forget and we could just go and enjoy the football and enjoy the occasion. And I got involved in trust in the first place because I have a son who's a Coventry City supporter, and I wanted to make sure there was a football club left for him. And how many years later, and there's still crises going on. Right from the beginning, when we were getting a petition up to get the Eco bill, me and Lionel standing in the council house, heckling the council to make sure that, that it went through. And we're still having problems all these years later.
Can't believe Lionel was heckling.
I'll tell you something, if that hadn't gone through, he'd have thrown himself off the balcony that night. I would love to go and watch football, but I truly believe that if we don't make a stance and we let Sisu continue, there won't be a football club to watch.
I think you're right, Rachel, and it's a very sad but true note that if we don't fight for it, who's going to? Right, in a second I'm going to go out to questions from the audience, but before I do, there's a young man sat up the back there with his granddad. If my eyesight doesn't deceive me, it's a young man called Owen, and he is affectionately known as Asbo, because up on the hill he was a bit mischievous. And when you saw me do the speech off the bus, and I forgot to mention Asbo and his granddad on that speech, so I want to make up for it now. Will you give him a round of applause, please? I've been wanting to put that right for 3 years. Right, got some questions coming over, but the first one, I'm going to go to Bill Smith, who's stood up there. Bill, you've got a question that you sent in advance, so would you like to ask that?
Professional football teams have always been the playthings of rich people with more money than social conscience. How has this changed in the era of Sky Sports and the Premier League?
Moss, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, well, I think, I alluded to that in the answers that I gave earlier on. When I started watching the game, and it was some years ago now, back in the 70s. And many people might not know this, but my dad brought me up as a Liverpool supporter. But I quickly, let me point out, established the fact that I was a Coventry kid, and this was the team that I wanted to support. And they were a great team too in them days. And I loved going up there, watching Tommy Richardson and Fergie and Wallace, and they were great days at Highfield Road. And I think it has changed. I mean, I've been a football fan all my life, and I don't enjoy it as much as I used to now. I don't think that is necessarily just to do with the fact that the club is in the plight that it is. I think, you know, you remember back in the days, we saw 2 live games a season. One was England-Scotland, one was the FA Cup final. Now there's live football on television every night of the week. And we're playing on Friday nights and Sunday evenings. And, you know, I love a 3 o'clock kick-off on a Saturday afternoon. And I appreciate, you know, times change and money talks. But as the game improved, there's plenty more money in the game at the very top, but not at our level at the moment. So yeah, the game has changed. Has it changed for the better? I personally don't think so.
Yeah.
No, it's all right.
I'd be interested.
From a monetary point of view, people used to say, you know, or people ask me today, you know, what sort of wages do you incur, and as compared to today. I don't mind telling people, you know, we were on something like £400 and £500 a week, and the Peugeot Talbot people just across the road from us, from my training ground, I had friends there, they were on £135 a week. So we're getting £400 and £500 plus bonuses. We were magnificent money for what we've done. And but I've got to tell you, folks, and I mean this, and my friends there will tell you, we didn't play for the money. We played because we love playing football. And it has, for me, spoiled the game. It has, but you can't blame the players. If a player's offered, if he's on, you know, £1,000 a week now, and somebody wants to pay him £30,000, he's going to take it. You know, you've got to blame the managers and the chairman for sanctioning these wages. But, you know, we move forward with someone just said, you know, is the football the same? It's not the same anymore. The passion's gone, tackling's gone, and there's not that love of the football club anymore. It's the love of the money for me that most players are playing for. And yeah, I think you can see that. You know, players are crying off with slight injuries. We weren't allowed to be injured. You know, we had to play with a broken toe or whatever. So the game has changed. You know, technically, I think there's a lot more technique in the game now. You know, it's. You know, I'm brought on to talk really because my technique is if I couldn't catch my kick in. But the game's changed, and it is money that's changed the game. I think if Sky TV pull out of football, it'd probably go bust. Because like you just said, it's 5, 6, 7 nights a week. Do I like it? No, I don't like going to watch Premiership games. There's very, very few games I watch on TV. I'd sooner go to the park and watch the kids, or come down and watch Sky Blues down at the Rico. And let's hope that comes many, many times in the future.
Kirk modestly understates his technical ability. He did score 2 goals in his time at Coventry City, which last season would have put him at the top of the leading scorer charts.
Just on a lighter note, I hope you don't mind this, because I know we all want to get off, but I've got to tell you, when I signed for the Sky Blues, I had 3 fabulous moments. One was signing for the club, and 2, if you don't mind me running through these couple of memories while I'm here, was I'd been at Luton Town. Coventry City were always my club, and I finally get to sign for them. And I'm absolutely overjoyed. Everybody's patting me on the back, fantastic. Well, I decided to go on holiday with a wife, and just at the week I signed. So I'm at the house and I'm waiting for the taxi to pick us up, and the driver pulls up, and he's looking at me, and he's looking at my eyes, and I'm thinking, he's recognised me. Kirk Stevens has been a big time sign for Coventry City. In the taxi, driving all the way to the airport, he's in the mirror and he's looking at me, and I'm thinking, God, he's going to ask me any minute, he's going to say. And he went all the way to the airport, Birmingham Airport. He pulled in the airport. I said, please ask me now. He's in the mirror again, and all of a sudden he turns around and says, come on then, give us a clue. Proud as punch. I said, Kirk Stevens, Coventry City Football Club. He said, no, which terminal you Pratt? If you don't mind me just taking this, because you can have have the mic all night then, because this is my little moment, because one of the questions I was hoping it'd come up tonight, what are your special occasions? Well, one that I get asked a lot about, I wasn't a prolific goal scorer, as you just mentioned, and I did score one goal, and you know, all my friends and relatives all crow about it now. And they say, well, can you remember it, Kirk? I said, well, you've got to remember, it's 30 odd years ago, and you know, my memory's not that good, but yeah, very, very, very vaguely. They said, where was it? Well, I said, well, to be honest with you, if I cast my mind back, it was on a Tuesday evening, and we were playing West Ham United, and West Ham were my second favourite side. So West Ham United, and we were kicking towards the West End. All my mates are in the West End, and if my memory serves me right, because it's a long, long time ago, I remember Steve Griswich, he got the ball, and he rolled it out to Stuart Pearce. Piercy played a little 1-2 with Mickey Ginn. Ginny's knocked it into Cyril's feet. Cyril has fed Benno a magnificent ball. Benno has fed Mickey Adams. Mickey Adams crashing down the left wing. He's got it across to Cyril, took it down on his chest, knocked it back to me, 33.5 yards front goal. Look at West End. I've smashed the ball in the back of the net. I don't remember too much about it.
It worries me that the gap between the Premiership and the Championship and the low divisions is getting so wide now that we're going to end up with part-time football clubs. You know, and why would the kids want to go and watch Coventry City when they can see Arsenal, Liverpool on the telly all the time? My son quite often says to me, Mum, why did you make me a City fan? You know, and I'm allowed to say this, he cried at the end of the cup final. And he said, I wanted us to win so much because I've never seen any success for this football club. And that's a whole generation.
I would also say that Sam came on the hill with us a few times, and he liked the place so much that he ended up going to Northampton University. Right. We now have some questions from the audience, more questions from the audience, and I promise I didn't choose the order of this, but the first one's Lionel Bird. Lionel, do you want to ask a question, or shall I read it out for you?
Read it out, you've got it.
Okay. Given today's appointment of David Boddy as CEO of Coventry City, what does the panel believe he can bring to the club given his past record? And for those that don't know, David Boddy has been associated with Worcester City. He promised the fans he wasn't going to sell the ground. He then sold the ground about 3 weeks later for a reported £7 million, which then apparently turned out to be only £4 million. So people are asking the question, what happened to the other £3 million? He's also been associated with Newport County, where, in fairness, they did have a bit of success during his time there, but I think he left fairly abruptly. It's going to be, shall we say, an interesting appointment, and as Confucius says, it's a curse to live in interesting times. Simon, you probably know a little bit more about the story, because the paper's been all across it today, so do you want to take this one?
I can do, yeah. Yeah, as David mentioned there, and to give you a bit of a history of Mr. Boddy, the first I heard about David Boddy was probably in late March, which was a month after he'd been appointed as the commercial director at Coventry City, which was obviously never announced formally. It was a very strange situation where his name appeared on the club website as the commercial director, but they never made any formal announcement about his appointment. So that led me to do a bit of digging into his history, and David's sort of covered it in the depth there. We did a story on the Coventry Telegraph website in April announcing that he'd been appointed as commercial director, and we asked the club for comment, and we never got any, which isn't surprising, bearing in mind our relationship with the club at the minute, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. But then today, I mean, I had my suspicions at the time that he might have been brought in to become the chief executive because they were looking for a chief executive. He obviously had previous experience of being a chief executive over at Newport County. And we got the news today that he'd been promoted to chief executive of Coventry City. And the only reason for that I can think of is he must have enjoyed tremendous success as commercial director in the 4 or so months that he was in that position, because it's quite a rise in quite a short space of time. Well, I suspect what actually happened was he's probably brought in to get to know the people, to get to know the club and how it works, with a view to becoming chief executive in the future, which is actually what's happened. What will he bring? Only time will tell. Some would say he can't do much worse than his predecessors. So hopefully he will enjoy more success than Chris Anderson, who was the managing director before him. It's essentially the same role with a different title. Chris obviously only stuck around for about 9 months before disappearing. I think we were pushing promotion when he arrived, and then by the time he left we were at the other end of the league, and I don't think you can completely blame Chris for that, in all fairness. There's obviously other off the field issues. But he's got a big task on his hands, Mr. Body. There's an article gone up this evening actually, I think, which sort of outlines what his priorities should be from our point of view, and I think we all know them very well. We look at the situation the club's in. If he's the man who's going to oversee the run of the club on a day-to-day basis, he's got some really urgent priorities. We've obviously had some good news about the academy today, and we've got an extension throughout next season, but that is only a short-term measure. We need to know what's going to happen to the academy in the long term. For too long now we've had talk about a combined facility for training in the academy, and that's all it's been. It's been talk, and the only thing that's probably been talked about longer with no material results is a long-term stadium for Coventry City, and that really, for me, has to be at the moment above anything else. Now, it is number one priority, because at the end of next season, the stark reality is that Coventry City has nowhere to play. There's nowhere to play its home matches. So this talk of a ground share at the Butts Park Arena is all well and good, but we've seen no material progress on that front. If that's going to happen, then brilliant, show us the plans, let's have a bit of direction, let's get a bit of momentum behind it, because I'm sure if we can see that this is a realistic prospect and the club can make it work, then the fans would be behind it. Why wouldn't we be? So it's the onus really is on Mr. Body now in Coventry City to put forward the evidence that can happen, and if not, then Wasps, Coventry City, and anyone else who can help move in the right direction need to get around the table, need to start banging some heads together and finding a solution to keep Coventry City at the Ricoh Arena, which I think probably from the conversations I've had with supporters is most fans' preferred option. And there has to be, where there's a will, there's a way, isn't there? Surely there has to be a deal that suits all parties. And I think as supporters, us as the press, I think we need to keep the pressure on all of the parties involved in this. Anyone who can make a difference, we need to put pressure on to make a difference, because if we don't, it's my honest belief that in just over 12 months' time, we're going to be in a situation where we can very realistically see Coventry either dropping out of the Football League completely or not existing at all. So it might sound like I'm being melodramatic and overstating it, but I really don't think I am. We've seen Coventry City leave Coventry before. I don't think if we tried to do that again, Coventry City would survive another season away from Coventry. So my message to Mr. Body and to fans really is, let's do everything we can to get this sorted, and let's do it now.
Thinking that they'd also bought the Ricoh, a bit like the London Bridge fiasco. And having been so embarrassed, do you think they've just given it to Tim Fisher for a play thing?
Who wants to start on that one? Right.
I don't think that they bought it thinking they bought the Ricoh. I think they bought the club for the option on the Ricoh, and then she thought she could get it for a bit less. So I think that was her plan, and because she can't get it now, I don't know why she's holding on to the club. I don't know why she just doesn't let it go and let it go to somebody that can put a bit of money into it and want success for the football club.
I want to pose a question which is sort of additional to that to Simon, because it goes to the point that you made, Rachel. How important do you think the court case starting on July 14th is in getting a resolution on the whole CISO ownership saga?
Well, I think I can probably start with the question and then your question actually. My view is, having researched the whole subject, is that CISO probably have had 3 business strategies since they took over Coventry City. In my mind, and the one that they're pretty open about actually when they first came in, was they were going to come in there a set amount that they were going to invest in the playing squad, and the first priority was to get the club promoted to the Premier League. on that basis, everyone would have been happy. They would have got a return on their investment. Coventry City fans would have been in the Premier League and would have all been enjoying top flight football, and we'd have all been honky-dory. But obviously that never happened. Interesting investment decisions were made by the man Joyce Parler entrusted to run Coventry City. She obviously got wind of those interesting investment decisions, restructured the management team at Coventry City, and essentially pulled the plug on the funding of the football team because it was unsustainable. The club was hemorrhaging money, and I don't think there were many owners that could have stomached the sort of losses Coventry City was making under Sisu's ownership in the initial years. So after that initial plan had failed, sort of culminating in the exit of Ray Ransom, really, I think the next business plan was to try and get a stake in the Ricoh Arena. And then the Ricoh Arena business, the Ricoh Arena as a whole would have been some level of security for Sisu. It would have also been a business that they could have ran with a view to making a profit. And obviously the way they went about trying to secure a stake in that business, many of you may know, some of you may not, was covered in a court case, a long-running court case which had just come to an end. It was found that Sisu had acted in a way to try and distress the stadium company in a bid to pick up a share in it on the cheap. There was obviously a lot of ins and outs as to what had happened, and that was there's many people involved in that whole saga. Many people probably didn't act in a way that they would be particularly proud of looking back, but that's the situation. The court case came to an end in December last year, and it was found that Coventry City Council hadn't acted unlawfully, and Sisu's claim for compensation as a result of being forced out of a deal for the Ricoh Arena was thrown out. So that sort of brings me on to the next business strategy that I think Sisu have got going on at the moment. So the first one was promotion to the Premier League, return on investment. The second one was trying to secure a stake in the Ricoh Arena. That didn't come off. I think what we're seeing now is sort of a continuation of that legal business case that they're trying to use to get money back. So basically, I think what they're doing at the minute, the legal action is the reason they're holding on to Coventry City, because the whole point of the legal action that we're going into again now is to build up this picture that they have in some way been forced out of a deal for the Ricoh Arena. They've been forced into a position where they can't stay at the Ricoh Arena, and the further the club falls under Sisu's ownership, the bigger their claim for compensation. So if we'd have owned the Ricoh Arena, we would have been in League One by now, we'd have been in the Championship by now, we'd have been in the Premier League by now, we'd have been earning this amount because we'd have got this amount through TV revenue, we'd have sold this many season tickets if we hadn't been playing in League One, and we'd have been in the Premier League, and we're playing in League One because we couldn't invest in the team because we didn't own the Ricoh Arena. That's the sort of convoluted logic that will be applied, I'm sure, as it was in the last court case during this new court case. So the benefit of holding on to Coventry City at the moment isn't because they can't continue with the legal action. They could probably continue with the legal action and sell the club. I can't see a reason why they couldn't. But the longer they hold on to it and the longer the club is in decline, the more compensation they can claim. So that, for me, is the reason they are holding on to the club. Now, I might be wrong, but that's my take on it. That's my honest opinion on why they are still in charge of this club. And I think the only way that realistically they will agree to walk away from the club at the moment is if someone comes in with a ridiculous offer, or if they drop further than they can possibly drop. So a situation where they're no longer in the Football League and they don't have a ground to play in would probably be about as far as you can fall. And it's not something that's completely inconceivable, or not an outcome I'm sure anyone in this room would like to see.
Right, thanks again, Simon, on that very comprehensive answer. Next question I have is from Farouk Haslam from UCU. Farouk,
Yes, I'm asking a question because I'm not particularly a football fan, so don't shoot me, please. But I've lived in Coventry for most of my life, and I've been aware of our fortune as a club. So the question I've got is, what economic model would you wish to adopt to supplant this kind of hedge fund intrusion into a football club? what's the alternative finance option so that the supporters have a say in how the thing is run?
From the point of view of the Sky Blue Trust, and why I got involved with the Sky Blue Trust in 2012, was very much the vision of supporters being allowed to have investment in that football club. We've seen it at other clubs where it's been successful. Portsmouth is a model that often is talked about. A model where you've got supporters having a stake in the club, as well as some more wealthy owners who contribute significant amounts. But that model, you know, is a model that has been proven to be working. You've seen it at other clubs as well. We've got at Swansea, etc. Now, when we started off, or restarted the Sky Blue Trust in 2012, that was very much at the core of what our belief was. Obviously, CSU are still here now, but there's a situation at the moment where there is, as everybody knows, a consortium who is interested in purchasing the club. Now, how far that's progressing, we don't know at this present moment in time. But the Sky Blue Trust very much sees that as a model in which the supporters could have a stake, and we're talking about individual supporters with an individual stake of, say, £1,000. And even individual supporters clubbing together towards £1,000, people couldn't afford that, to actually contribute to have a percentage stake in the club. And I think that is the model. I talked earlier on about people who cared about the football club, who understood the city in which we operate, who had an understanding and a passion for the community in which it serves. What better understanding than the football supporters who actually love the football club? I think that is the model, not just for Coventry City, but for football in general going forward.
Kirk, I'd be interested in your view on that, because I mean, the time when you first became associated as a very young player was back in the Derek Robbins days of owning the club, yeah? And so through all of that time, you've seen it evolve from local businessmen, done good, with a passion for the club, built the club up, to 30 odd years in the top flight of football, but then we've seen different ownership models change. What are your thoughts on it as a player and a lover of the club?
I've got to be honest, I don't get heavily involved in the financial situation of the club, but what I do know, it takes an awful lot of money to run a football club. You know, there's not just the players' wages or staff, everything else, as everybody knows. But so, I think it's fantastic that we've got people that want to put money in, supporters want to put money in and run the football club. But whether that'll ever become a reality, I don't know, because if I know personally that there's been offers refused, rejected for a lot of money, and I've got friends that can testify to that. And so when I see what's being offered now, I'm thinking, well, if she's turned that down, there's no way she's going to accept that. But as I said a minute, I don't know enough about it. I don't get involved in it. I hear little bits and bobs. I hear one or two people that I respect, and I listen to their opinions, their views, keep them to myself, because one day something will happen. And it's all going to be for the benefit of the club. I don't honestly know which way it's going to go. I really don't. But I do know there's a lot of interest in Coventry City Football Club. A lot of people that love the football club with money, that want to do well for the football club. If those people got in charge, I'd be absolutely delighted. I'd be delighted to be part of it in some way, because the football club is my club. As like, I mean, we're looking at Joe Elliott sitting there, Mr. Sky Blue, isn't he? He's through and through. There's a lot of friends of ours that love the football club. If we had, you can have millions, but if you haven't got a passion for the club, then millions could be wasted. And I think you get the right people with the right passion, with the money, this could be a fantastic club. As I said, but I don't know enough to get totally involved with that.
Thanks, Kirk. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, the amount of money involved in football now is such that it's difficult to imagine ownership models that haven't got some serious money behind them. But I think, you know, what Moz pointed out, it is possible still for supporters to be part of that. And I promised myself I wouldn't say too much tonight, but what has been achieved at Portsmouth Football Club with a combination of high net worth individuals and supporters, which now they stabilise their club, they've got promoted, they've passed us on the way up as we're going down, and they've now got some serious money coming in from the former Vice President of Disney, with hopefully the proper interests of the club and the supporters at heart, and that sort of model can work. Duncan, did you want to say anything?
I think that's just sort of following on the same theme. It's clear that the money needs to be there, but I personally believe that the model that Moz is talking about is also necessary. The owners come and they go. I think it's ideal if we have owners who are Coventry people and care about this club. That's clear. But I think we should be looking at something long term that is in the constitution of the club. So I think there's one issue is economics, and you can talk about economics separately. Another thing is constitution. So you have AFC Wimbledon are obviously another example, like Portsmouth, more extreme. Fortunately, at the moment, we're not in the situation that AFC Wimbledon was back at that point. They had no choice. We have more options open to us. For Wimbledon, their team was taken by the owners to Milton Keynes. There was nothing that they could do about it. They fought and they fought and they fought, and amongst themselves decided that their solution, as legally they were going to get nowhere with it, because legally the ownership is not theirs. They cannot do a thing about it, regardless of where the moral correctness sits, if you like. And they started from scratch, and obviously we're not there, we don't want to be there, it's drastic, but they're now in the league above us. It's taken them a while, they've been very successful, and they have in their constitution, I don't know the details, but basically when you start talking about really the kinds of major decisions which are going to really impact on a big level on the supporters, they need to take a vote on it, and that vote needs to be something like 90% in favour. For example, if there was a proposal to take Wimbledon away from where they are, away from their neighbourhood, then it's in their constitution that the members of the club, which is all of them as it's supporter owned, need to have a vote of 90% or above for that to go through. And so it's like a different model from what we're talking about, because that's completely supporter owned. But I think the principle of there being some element of supporter ownership, even if economically that's a relatively small contribution, and a constitution which safeguards some of the essential things for us, and owners who are obviously able to respect that constitution. So I think there's a situation of economics, but I think there's a situation of constitution laws within the club.
Thanks for that, Duncan. Interesting to get another comparison with the fantastic fairy tale almost, starting with a blank sheet of paper, and again, they now sit above Coventry City in the hierarchy. Next question then. I hope I pronounced this correctly, Willie. Wijgerden Purawa.
I want to take that. I understand obviously, so I hate to everyone out. But the one person I look back and really blame on a lot of our troubles is Brian Richardson. Right. I look back at the headlines and when we were selling Highfield Road and moving, or going to move to the Rico, and Telegraph headlines as well, saying we bought the disposal gasworks site for £1 and British Gas are going to give us $1 million. And a year later, it was like, we don't own the site. The company in Holland owns it. And we have to pay them 20 million to get it.
Yeah. I'm going to put that to Simon first of all, because obviously he's written this excellent book, which if you haven't read it, I would thoroughly recommend it. It really is a good read. It's not a happy one, but it is a good read. And Simon's going to be signing copies of his book for anyone that wants to buy one later.
By the way, you actually pronounced the name quite well.
Thank you.
Brian Richardson. I mean, I have to say, just on a personal note, Brian Richardson is probably one of the reasons I support Coventry City. I mean, the buzz he created around the club during his spell as chairman was incredible. You know, I don't think anyone can deny that he was a showman. And I think the best description I ever got of Brian was that he's a bit of a mirage maker, actually. You know, the appointment of Ron Atkinson and all the hype around that was what got me hooked on Coventry City as a youngster. So, I think Brian, with all balance, I think Brian was a visionary, and I think he had the right idea. Actually, I think he saw that if Coventry City were to go on and compete with the big boys in the top flight of English football, then what we needed was more than what Highfield Road could provide. You know, Highfield Road was very, very limited in terms of being able to expand. The size of it, I don't really buy the argument that it wasn't big enough. I think you look at Coventry City's attendances historically, they've never really been that much higher than 20,000. You know, and it's not to say we can't draw crowds bigger than 20,000. I think it's just that we struggle to maintain above that number. But his idea was obviously that we would create this venue that would give us additional income streams, and then that was to be able to support the product on the pitch, and then we would compete with the big boys. And I think if that vision had come off as was planned, we'd be in a very, very different position today. You know, we were ahead of the game in terms of that.
Because my understanding is, and I'm just a little person, no one is, right, is this Dutch company that all of a sudden owned the gasworks, it was this under this son's name.
No, yeah, I know you get that. I was going to move on to that. I think the reason Brian's vision didn't come to fruition, there was many strands to why. Coventry City was a victim of circumstance, not least that we were going through a bit of a recession at the time, and banks who had loaned money to football clubs started to put the squeeze on them to get that money back, and this was just at the time when Coventry City needed money. You know, we wanted to invest in a massive infrastructure project, we wanted to build a big stadium, and at this time, every time we got money, so from the sale of Highfield Road, whether that be loans from directors such as Jeffrey Robinson, who was obviously banking the club back at the time, the banks were just hoovering it all up. Perhaps
we can't understand, but what I can understand is British Gas basically gave that land to us, yeah, for £1, as some led to believe, yeah. And then they gave £1 million to help us decontaminate it, and next thing, we're actually buying it. We had it for £1, we're buying it again for 20 million, or that's what's asking.
So what actually happened was, Brian managed.
I still remember the Telegraph.
Yeah, Brian managed to convince this Dutch firm to carry out the decontamination work. And when they completed the decontamination work and came for payment, Brian said, "Oh, we don't actually own the land. We're still owned by British Gas." So then British Gas sold it to the Dutch firm
as a result of them doing the eco-contamination work, they got a good deal. And then that's when the council had to step in, and that's where we see the problems today, where from that moment on really, the council became involved and it was no longer a Coventry City-led project. Now, it became more of a regeneration project than just a purely Coventry City-focused project, and Coventry City had to take a back seat. Add that to the fact that we didn't have the money to invest in the project, and Coventry City fell down the list of priorities in terms of making sure that that stadium would benefit the football club. So it was a culmination of factors, and by that land deal certainly was a massive issue.
This Dutch-owned company was under the ownership of Brian Richardson's sons.
No, the football club never owned the land.
No, not the football club. Brian Richardson's son owned this Dutch company.
It was never. As far as I know, it was never owned by anyone connected to the football club, and that is why we ended up in the situation we're in today. Really, well, one of the many reasons we ended up in the situation we're in today.
See, it's quite interesting because the Telegraph never goes back on that. That this is the headlines we gave in 98.
It's I mean, yeah. That's a bit of an aside, but yeah, I accept that. But the staffing issues being what they are, part of the reason I wrote this book actually is so that I could go back in depth, in detail, look at this whole stadium project, look at the circumstances that led to the situation we're in today. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this project, because I wouldn't have the time and the resources to be able to do that during work time, so I had to do it in my own time and do all the research and put all the facts together and compile it in a way that hopefully people can understand. So yeah, that was part of my motivation, is the frustration that I share with you, is that as journalists we don't have the time and resources to be as thorough as we'd like to be anymore. So it takes a bit of...
I'm one of these people, well, I am probably one of the journalists who thinks Brian Richardson took more out of our club that we really, no one's questioning.
I'm probably not going to comment on that because I want to get myself in trouble.
Yeah, we do have to be aware of the normal legal rules that apply in these circumstances. But I think there is absolutely no doubt that I referred to crises earlier on that have been ongoing. And they do start back at that time, despite the fact that we had a fantastic football team to watch.
Yeah, I was just going to say, have you actually read Simon's book?
No.
No. Without wanting to make his head any bigger than it is, because you know how big it is, it's a really good factual account of the whole period, when the Rico was built, and there's an awful lot of detail in there that I didn't know about before I read it. So it's well worth a read, and certainly the detail that you need to go into, which we can't cover here tonight. But there's no getting away from the fact that if we had owned the Rico, it would be a better situation than it is now. But we don't, for the circumstances that Simon's just alluded to. And we are where we are.
Right, I hope that's answered your question as clearly as we can. Next one, Christopher Sidwell from the NUT. Christopher?
Hey, I'm going to ask you to ask the question, but can I just say it's a question of trust, really. Not Sky Blue trust, but trust.
Yeah.
I think it's remarkable that there's 3,500, we're told, season ticket holders that have put trust in the club this season. Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, because interestingly, I don't know more than 3 season tickets holders out of probably 150 that I know that say they've actually renewed. So I don't know where all of them.
Well, according to Simon's paper, it's 3,500.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the number, but I just think it's quite remarkable. But Christopher's question, as he said, it's a question of trust. Why would any party, for example, the Coventry Rugby Club, enter into a partnership with Coventry City and CSU, given their history of disputes and legal action with previous partners, the council, Hicks Trust, WASPs, etc.? Duncan, do you want to have a first shot?
Personally, I have the intuition that it's a massive issue, and there was a question earlier about the new appointment of the club, and don't know, the thing that worries me really is under the ownership of Sisu, are they able to rebuild trust with all the people that we need to rebuild trust with in the city, and whether that's to continue on at the RICO, because things seem to have got pretty spiky now between the football club and the Wasps. That's not looking particularly good, although that can change. The academy we're sort of looking a bit better with at the moment, if we're talking about ground sharing somewhere else. I don't know, I feel that people in the city have been watching and it's not always what the club has done, it's not always what the ownership has done, but the manner that they've gone about that. And I think that people are naturally really going to think twice about that. They've really burnt bridges all over the city, and yeah, I think that's a massive concern. Whilst Sisu at the helm, regardless of who the chap is with whatever title he's got, who's doing the negotiating, if what we've got behind the scenes is Joy Sepler, Tim Fisher's still there, I don't know, I think it's a problem.
So, Coventry City Council, the Alan Edward Higgs Charity, Wasps, Coventry Sports Foundation, the Coventry Telegraph, the Guardian newspaper, the Sky Blue Trust, the Jimmy Hill Way. What have they all got in common?
Oh, we've all fallen out with Joy.
We've all fallen out with Sisu. So that tells me that there's a real problem there with the owners and the way that they deal with individuals and organisations. I said at the very start, we've come out and we've nailed our colours to the mast. Our view is that the time has passed for relationships to be rebuilt. Too much damage has been done. They've had a decade to build relationships, and they have the very unfortunate habit of falling out with everyone they deal with. So on that basis, I think it's too late for any rebuilding of bridges. I think the damage has already been done for most Coventry City fans, and sadly that's why we see them turning the back on the team that they've loved all their lives. So the only way that will change, in my view, is if Coventry City is under new owners, and that means that Sisu have to put the door up for sale and start listening seriously to offers for the club.
How many here were season ticket holders last year? How many are renewing next year? There you go.
Yeah, that's fairly consistent in terms of straw polls that we've done. We've got a strategy, so many straw polls, it's not scientific. And we'll only really know when we see how many are in the stadium at the start of the new season.
The other thing about there is, whenever we do these straw polls, people who decide to get their season ticket are perfectly entitled to do so, and it's their choice. And it's the same with Sixfields. It was people's choice to go or not to go there. It was a very, very difficult decision, whichever way you fell down, and I'm sure that's the case now. So what we don't want is Coventry City supporters falling out amongst themselves, as did happen for a period at Sixfields. We all want the same thing. We all want our club to start prospering again.
Okay, going to move on to another question. This is from Bob Mitchell. Bob?
Hello. Can I ask the panel, do they really think that Sisu still need or want to spend 30 million on a new stadium?
Who wants to take that one?
It's only one answer to that, isn't it?
Do I think that Sisu will spend £30 million on a new stadium? No. Do they want to? No. How long has it been that we've been talking about a new stadium? How long ago was it that Tim Fisher talked about a new stadium in 3 years? How long ago was it that Mark Labovich talked about an announcement on a new stadium in a fortnight, was it?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay, 3 weeks.
He was misquoted.
we've heard it all before.
Again, isn't it?
We've heard the rhetoric, we've heard the propaganda. Until we see something tangible, I don't think any of us are going to believe that there's going to be a new stadium. So, Tim Fisher's last stated position is that the new stadium project is over. That's it, full stop. So, Coventry City building its own stadium is no longer an ambition or an aim that they have, according to the now chairman of the football club. How long that will remain the case, only time will tell.
What's made him change his mind? I mean, for all this time, he's reiterated the fact that the Sky Blues need this commercial revenue, retain all that money from commercial interests, which has been a nonsense. Because if you have an option having a team where you rent the stadium for a Premier club and you get 70-80 million pounds for one season, that is better than 10 seasons revenue from commercial interests in a lower rated division.
Look, let me just say, I'm not here to defend Tim Fisher, far from it, right? And I have very, very real doubts that this was ever a realistic proposition that they ever wanted to pursue it. What I can do is tell you what Tim said. And Tim said that the reason they're not taking it forward anymore is because they couldn't get the land. That's the reason he gave. Whether or not you believe that is up to you. I'm just here to tell you what he said. The argument you make there about the revenues and needing access to non-match day revenues and the like, I think there is some merit to that, to be fair to Tim. You know, every football club needs access to as much revenue as it can possibly get. You know, why wouldn't it? That's just good business sense. But
Premier money is better.
He recently came out with a statement around season tickets saying that was the only access. That was the only money they had access to, which was actually just complete nonsense. And we recruited a football finance specialist from Sheffield Hallam University to analyse all the incomes that Coventry City gets compared to other clubs, and if there's any major ones at the Ricoh Arena that they don't get, that puts them at a major competitive disadvantage. And he said, in a nutshell, that no, there isn't at the moment, and the deal they've got, there is nothing that Coventry City Football Club doesn't have access to, or that would make a major difference that other teams at this level or the level above do. So we should have been competing at the top end of League One, and we certainly should be competing at the top end of League Two on the deal we've got at the moment.
Yes, but in the same total, we have far greater attendances at an average head count of £15 a head than lower teams with smaller attendances that have the revenue. So at the end of the day, the finances of Coventry City are more than comparable with most teams that are competing against.
That's exactly what
Tim Fisher actually said that Coventry City are in the top third band of wages payable to players. So therefore, performance-wise, they should never be at the bottom third.
If you take the average attendance for Coventry City this season and take a couple of thousand off, whatever it might be, and apply it to this level, we'll probably have this. We'll be in the top two in terms of attendances. And the main income streams for teams at this level are the goodwill payments from the Premier League rolling down, and the TV money and the ticket money. So all this talk about pies and pints and not having a club shop on site, that sort of thing, it's just nonsense really. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference, especially at this level.
And what Tim is always very good at is talking about the revenues. It's always about the revenues. He never actually tells you about the costs of deriving these revenues that we're missing.
It's always our fault.
Well,
Yeah, it's always.
it's always our fault.
It's always our fault.
Anyway, moving on. I'm going to do two more questions, and then I think we're going to wrap because it's been a good evening, and I don't want to overdo it. So, Martin Joseph Harrison. Yeah.
My question was, where are you going to play next season? Because I was thinking, is it going to be Rico? You've got to send where?
When you mean next season, do you mean the season about to start in August, or looking beyond that when the deal runs out at the Rico?
The season's about to start in August.
Well, Stuart.
So you mean where we're going to be playing the season after next?
Yeah.
When hopefully we're in League One. Yeah. Okay. So you mean, well, this coming season, starting in August, we'll be playing at the Ricoh. The season after that, we have to be playing at the Ricoh. If we're not playing at the Ricoh, then I fear for the future of the football club. It's as simple as that. We have to be playing at the Ricoh.
Yeah.
Good.
You just said it all.
Anyone disagree with that view? I think that's pretty unanimous. It's probably pretty unanimous in this room, I guess, looking at all the heads nodding when Moz gave that answer. So, final question is from Billy Bell, but it also actually nicely goes into the question I was going to wrap up with. Billy, do you want to ask it? Or I'll ask it for you, and then I'll link it in to the summary question that I was going to do anyway. And Billy says, quite rightly, can we talk about a positive future and not the past? What can we do as a collective to get our message home to Season and the football world that we want our club back? And what I was going to ask, and they're along the same lines, because despite all the ribbons tied and the placards raised, the miles marched, the slogans sung and the petitions published, CISA are still here. Is there any future for Coventry City Football Club if CISA remain? And how can we bring about a better future for our club? And how can this audience help to achieve that? Who wants to take that one then? Go on, Rach.
I think we just need to continue to make our voices heard. We need to turn up in numbers at televised matches and let the whole world hear how we feel about CISO. And we just need to keep protesting and keep banging on the door, and hopefully one day we'll be listening to them.
What I would simply say is we must never give up, because this is our football club. It's not their football club. This is our city. It's not their city. And it will always be our football club and our city. And I feel passionately about this. You've probably heard me going on before, and I apologise for that. But we need to stay together, whether you're going to the Rico next season or whether you're staying away, whether you've not been to the Rico for years or whether you've just decided this season, to give it a miss. Someday this football club will rise from the ashes again. You have to believe that. You have to be optimistic that this football club has a future. Otherwise, we might as well all give in. So my message and my plea to you all is to keep hanging on in there. Remember, this is our football club. Keep supporting them in whatever way you choose to do that. And let's hope for a brighter day.
So, no one petition, no one protest, no one boycott is going to make Coventry City great again. It's just not going to happen. But what you have to do is keep those things up, because what those things do is focus minds. That's the thing I heard time and time again when I was writing the book and speaking to the people behind the decisions that ultimately led to Coventry City coming back to the Rico Arena. What effect did the protests have? What effect did the petitions have? And of course, on their own, they didn't make a significant difference. But the cumulative effect of all of those things, and the fact that they went on for so long, and the fact that it was relentless and passionate, made people think, right, what can we do to solve this? It was in their minds every day when they woke up. One of the first things they think about is the situation at Coventry City. And these are the people who had the power to get Coventry City back into its home city. So now we're in a situation where Coventry City might be homeless again. We're in a situation where Coventry City faces dropping out of existence. And I'm sure nobody really wants that. So what you guys have to do, what we have to do as a media, is just put pressure on anyone who can make a decision that can help Coventry City. That might be somebody you think can't make a difference on their own. It might be an MP who can't make a difference on their own. It might be the new chief executive of the football club who can't make a difference on their own. It might be the leader of the council who can't make a difference on his own. It might be the owner of Wasps who can't make a difference on his own. But all those people together, you put pressure on enough people and keep up the ante on them, then eventually something's going to happen. It has to. So you've just got to keep that belief. Don't give up and think that we can't do anything about it and, what's the point in doing this because that's not going to make a difference. Because it's not about that one action, it's about the collective action, and it's about what you guys as a fan base can achieve, not as individuals.
I think I would echo all of those sentiments and repeat to an extent the idea of what happens when we get together. And for me, Wembley recently was never expected to see, well, especially the way we're going now, I definitely never expected to see my team win something, let alone in Wembley with 45,000 Sky Blues fans. I mean, and that, I don't know, I think every time we feel that together, it happened when we came back to the Rico against Gillingham, it happened at Wimbledon. There's, every time we kind of, I think the Sky Blue Trust marches, that's exactly what it did when you had 7,000 people in Broadgate. All of that is, on the one hand, we're sending out a message just by the pure number of bodies there, but I think we're also doing something internally, because I think that's kind of what, somehow to generate those kind of situations where you can see, yeah, shit, it's not just a few of us, this is a lot of us, and we're all feeling the same way. And I think that is kind of one of the most kind of powerful things that we can do, because yeah, we have to kind of keep on pushing, but we need kind of energy to keep on pushing. And I think it's all the same things that we've been doing, but it's keeping on, it's not giving up.
Just finishing on a positive note, really. And we were at Wembley 3 times. Spurs, 45,000 of us there. Everton, we created a record there, 45,000 away supporters for the Charity Shield. And then the Checkatrade Trophy, another record, 45,000 supporters, all country city. Fantastic. But before I go, can I run you through my goal again? Thanks very much for listening to the start. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm just going to add one thing on that. There is a bid from a consortium, it's led by Gary Hoffman. I'm really positive personally about that bid. I wish it all success, and I hope that Joyce Parr eventually listens to it, and when she does, there will be the opportunity for supporters to invest, and I hope that the people of this city, the people of Warwickshire, the people in the London Supporters Club, people all over the world who are Coventry City fans, get behind Gary and Joe, because he sat there very quietly all night, and Richard Overson and the other people in that consortium, and let's take back our football club. I want to thank, first of all of you for listening attentively, for some really good questions, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of them tonight, but you've been a brilliant audience. I want to thank all of the panel, Kirk Stevens, thank you for the goals, thank you for the memories, and particularly thank you for your contribution tonight. Rachel, brilliant. I know you were a bit nervous coming on, but you've done fantastically well. Yeah, Chair tried to kill her earlier. Moz, eloquent as always. Thank you very much. Simon, absolutely brilliant. Remember, Simon's got copies of the books to sell and sign. Don't miss it. Particularly you, sir. Help understand your question. And finally, on the panel, thank you for a brilliant film, A Work of Love. I first met Duncan the first time I went to the Hill, and I think it's probably your first trip to the Hill, when we went on the rickety bus, not the one that Joe looks after. This is one from Nuneaton, but we did get there, and we had a great day, and it was the only time I went on that bloody hill that we had decent weather. After that, it was just dreadful every time. So, Duncan, thank you. You obviously provoked a lot of questions. It's been the basis of a great night, and once again, to Carl. Brilliant piece of organisation. To Sean, also for backing the event. Where are you, Sean? Is he?
He's had to go back to Stoke-on-Trent.
No,
Port
right.
Vale issue, I think.
Yeah, well, pass on our thanks. To Daryl, on behalf of UCU for hosting us tonight. And sorry, I didn't get to ask your question about the Marxist-Leninist interpretation of the offside rule. I should say that when I was here at the Lanch, Darren was union president even then. And
Say he's old.
He's that old. So, thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a brilliant night. Safe journey home. Thanks for coming.